It's an overcast day here at the new Minas village, and as you can see, we have ourselves a bit of a lineup. We arrived about 5 minutes before it opened, which is the secret to finding the best stuff. So let's see if we can't find ourselves a little previously enjoyed happiness for a good price. And as soon as we enter the village, we are greeted with this huge organ. What are the odds that this didn't come from a local church? Do churches still have organists? Or do they just press play on a Spotify playlist and call it a day? I guess this one isn't plugged in. At $80, I really hope they made sure it still worked. 3 flute settings. Maybe one is a regular flute, one's a champagne flute, and the other's a skin flute? There's a horn sound. I think that's like a French horn or a car horn. And the black button is for solo. Is that Han Solo? Or does it adjust the volume so low you can't hear it anymore? Moving on, to the back corner of the building we find assorted electronics. And it looks like they've dedicated much more space here than usual, but looks can be deceiving. Let's see if there's anything here worth getting excited about. Here's a Yamaha GX5 mini component system with a 3-disc changer. It's missing the faceplate that goes in front of the CD drawer. That would be pretty tricky to replace. But other than that, this thing looks like it's in great shape. I really like the black and purple design. The 90s were all about the black electronics. 70s was wood grain, 80s was gray, and you know, it's all cool, but I like the black hi-fi equipment. I think that looks the coolest. And we all know that's the most important thing when it comes to stereo equipment. It's gotta look cool. This empty red case looks like it's for holding cassette tapes, possibly for something else, who the hell knows? Famicom games maybe? Probably not. Below all this, I spotted a mystery case that had a really nice typewriter inside. Yeah, I know I kind of dunked on typewriters in a recent episode, but this one is in incredible condition, and I don't know, I just think it looks great. I have no use for it, but it's still nice to gawk at. I looked it up, and one in this condition probably sell for about $90 on eBay. $90 US. Elsewhere in assorted electronics, I found yet another one of these flight sticks. This time it's a Logitech Attack 3. This one is a little dirtier than the rest, but it's only $7. So if it works and you like the idea of rubbing your joystick up and down with rubbing alcohol, then this would be a fantastic pickup. As I've stated several times before, I'm not really into flight simulators, but I'm telling you one day I'm going to break down and buy one of these just so I can, have some closure on the topic. Here's a really boring micro USB cable for $4. Not sure why this isn't hanging on a hook somewhere else. If I had to guess, I'd say a shopper picked it up and you made it this far before realizing they don't actually want it and they just left it here. That's pretty lazy, but check this out. It's an XG RGB mechanical keyboard. XG stands for Extreme Gaming. And Extreme starts with an E, but not if you're in marketing. The only thing I could find online for this keyboard was a Canadian website that was selling a used one for $30 a few years ago. This would require a deep cleaning, but otherwise at $8, this would be a great purchase for someone who would just absolutely love to drive their roommates or family insane with all the clicking. I also had quite a robust selfie stick that wasn't actually a selfie stick. It's a monopod, but there is very little difference in the two. Kinda. I guess monopods are like a tripod, but instead of having 3 legs, it just has 1. Now a selfie stick also only has 1 appendage, but instead of it being a leg, it's more like an arm. That probably didn't make any sense because I just pulled it out of my ass. What the hell's this thing? A modem? Ooh, not quite. It's the CPU for a 2007 Honda Accord. I wonder if it can play Doom. Can't say I've ever seen one of these at the village, or anywhere for that matter. But this is quite a common sight here at the village. Individually priced components of a video game console. This is the AV cable for a Nintendo Wii for $5, and right beside it here's the power supply for the same Wii console for $6. I'm sure the sensor bar is hanging on one of these hooks somewhere too. Oh, and don't forget the Wiimote and the nunchuck. They'll all be priced separately instead of being bundled with the console. Of course, these things all come in, all jumbled and mixed up, so it's easy to not realize, what goes with what, unless, I don't know, they had the word Nintendo stamped on it or something, but, even though this footage was shot at the end of August, they had an entire end cap dedicated to Halloween stuff. Like this bloody foot that has a bone protruding from the top. This seems a little graphic for the village, but it isn't the scariest thing on this shelf. Not by a long shot. This is one of the creepiest sleeping dolls I have ever seen, with this blank, pale, emotionless face, and the bluest eyes. The devil's eyes. I realized that what was living behind that doll's eyes was purely and simply evil. So we better set it down and take a look at this cute dog mask. Oh man, I miss Halloween. I don't miss that doll though. Here's a couple photo tripods. They're definitely not for video. No fluid heads on these suckers. But if you just need something to hold your camera still, these would do the trick. Above the tripods, they had a padded laptop buffer thing. So you don't have a hot laptop battery irradiating your junk while you surf the internet. The light on it is a little broken, but otherwise it's Well, it's probably covered in some random person's swampy crotch water, so I wish I didn't touch it. Wow, here's another one. Oh my god, why am I touching it? Stop that! Here's something that stood out to me. I had to look up what it was, but I guess it's a Provocraft Cuttlebug, an embossing and die cutting machine. So if you're into embossing and die cutting, or cutting die, I'm not really sure how that goes, but yeah, if you're into crafting, this would be a great pickup. As far as I can tell, after about 1 minute of research, people sell these things for about 70 bucks. And that's for a used one. So at $13, if this thing works, that's a really good deal. Also, remember before people said do your research, they said Google it? They're the same thing. I guess research sounds more scientific maybe? Speaking of science, check out this microscope. I was super pumped to get my very own microscope when I was a young fella. The only things I can remember looking at were cat fur and fleas. I was frustrated by the fact that light needs to pass through whatever you're looking at. Then later in life, I was frustrated again by them when we used them in high school, but that's because I wasn't the best student. Can you believe that? Actually, if you've watched previous episodes, you know I keep buying useless junk that I have no room for because I take forever to learn a lesson. The education continues here in the village with this $5 three-dimensional glow-in-the-dark solar system model-making kit. Boy, that was a mouthful. I guess science nerds aren't that great at coming up with snappy names for their model kits. Also, they're not great at ad copy. It says this giant model is 75 centimeters by 75 centimeters wide when built. Giant? For who? An ant? 75 centimeters is like 2.5 feet. So these nerds need to pump the brakes and chill it down a notch. Good selection of empty bags and cases. At least I think they're all empty. I always hope to find something cool inside. Maybe someday, but not today. Although I did find something cool in this section. How to draw and paint fantastic dragons and other fantasy creatures. Shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but that is a pretty fantastic dragon on the front. And on the back they make it look pretty easy. Just draw some balls and wavy lines and boom, you got yourself a dragon. It isn't that easy in practice, of course. This would only frustrate me. I've always wanted to be able to draw very well, but that takes time and patience. Two things that unfortunately you can't buy at the village. You can buy 8-track cassettes though. Here's a good example. Road Music by TV Records. Quite the titillating album cover. Bundled in with it is All You Need Is Love. I think those are both compilation albums. Not very good ones. At least they had a theme going. Close by in the sporting goods sections I found this really cool looking helmet. I think it's for paintball. Not really my thing. Still cooler than an 8-track compilation album though. Same thing can be said about these roller skates that are only $10. These would never fit my feet, and I have absolutely no desire to go roller skating, but I still love to see stuff like this at the village. These must be from a roller disco that shut down or something. Maybe? Wow, that would mean that New Minas had a roller disco. I was surprised that they had a village. New Minas has a lot more than you'd think. And I thought this thing beside the roller skates was a skateboard, but after looking at the other side, I'm not sure what it is. Pretty radical early 2000s design on it though. Yeah, I think I've mentioned this before, but I almost never flip through the records here. You really have to be in the right place at the right time to snag anything worth listening to. But I guess music is subjective, or is it objective? I always get those two mixed up. Either way, I flipped through all these records and afterwards deemed it a complete waste of time. You have a much better chance at finding a good cassette tape to listen to, but maybe not at this village. This stood out to me though. A still sealed 4-pack of Memorex 110-minute blank cassettes. These are the crappy kind of blank cassettes. The cheap kind. The kind that brings back the warm and fuzzies for me because this is the kind I used to make copies of the albums that I borrowed from friends. It's like ripping MP3s, but it takes way longer. But the good thing is you can listen to the songs as you copy them over. Close by here's a 6-pack of 60-minute cassette tapes. It appears to also be the cheaper type of tape, but there's 6 of them and they cost more, so you get more. Because I'm the kind of guy who doesn't let something like simple math talk me out of getting a good deal. Oh, okay, here it is. This is it, man. This Memorex Type 1 60-minute tape is the exact same tape with the exact same packaging that I used to use back in the day. Oh yeah, this is what it's all about, folks. It's all about kicking myself for not buying that Memorex Type 1 60-minute tape just so I could stick it on a shelf and look at it every once in a while. Damn. Oh, and those really cheap 60-minute tapes that we looked at just a moment ago? They were imported for Zellers, who we talked about in a previous road trip episode. Not sure why I thought that was important enough to mention, but here we are. And here's the video game section, which is unfortunately the saddest video game section I've ever seen at a village. There seems to be about 27 games, and it's all Wii shovelware, sports titles, or educational games for kids. At least they're very reasonable with their prices. Most of these are only $2. I mean, even if they gave me $2 per game, I still wouldn't be interested. Well, maybe Bejeweled 2 here would interest me, but wow, that's only $1. I played this game a lot. Would have been cool to have a physical copy of the disc, but I didn't buy it for some reason. Here's a copy of Red Baron for the PC. Doesn't come with a coupon for free pizza though. Oh man, look how empty this shelf looks. Getting me down, so we better move on to the kids' toy section, which usually puts a smile on my face. What do we got here? A crappy plastic guitar with crappy plastic strings. Here's a set of crappy plastic binoculars. Ooh, an interesting monster toy thing in a crappy plastic cage. It has a crappy plastic tongue. Oh, actually, that's rubber. And kind of gross, too. I don't know where that tongue's been. Here's a big plastic container shaped like the baby from The Incredibles, I think. There's absolutely nothing going on inside his head. Here's a very pink leapfrog toy laptop that also has nothing going on inside. Not sure what the deal is with that. Close by, I found a My First Smart Pad, and it farts like a robot when you press some of the buttons. Different sounding robot farts too. At least this is what I'd imagine robot farts would sound like. No, I was having way too much fun with that, but no fun to be had with this Dirt Devil Jr. broom and dust fan. More plastic for the landfill. Ooh, freaky Elmo there. But beside him is another form of plastic waste. These noisemakers that they hand out during sporting events. Why? Not only is it a waste of resources, but people throw these directly into the garbage immediately after the game. I wish I could use this thing to slap the face of the person that invented them. I'm sorry, that was harsh. I'm obviously still upset over the lack of video game selection. Here's a little hairdresser chair. When I was a kid, I used to get my hair cut in someone's basement, which sounds really creepy, but I swear it wasn't. It was just a small home business. Remember those from the before times? Anyways, they had one of these chairs in front of a huge mirror, so it felt super legit. Here's a Barbie head thing, and I don't know, maybe I'm being anal here, but if I was in charge of packaging this thing back up, I would have put a little bit more effort into making the entire thing a lot more presentable, you know? Come on, New Minas, you gotta take a little more pride in your thrift store donations. I didn't have one of these little Fisher-Price toy xylophones when I was a kid. I always wanted one, so I can't not tap out a little tune when I see them. Check out this enormous Nerf gun. I was tempted to buy this so I could spray paint it and make it look like some kind of cool futuristic alien space gun, but I have no idea how to do that, and if I'm gonna try it, it's not gonna be on something cool like this. And speaking of cool, check out this toy guitar. It's much cooler than that other crappy plastic toy guitar because this one makes cool sounds. You don't even need to learn how to play the guitar to melt faces with this thing. You'll be an instant rock star with this toy guitar. I tell you, someone should be paying me to come up with these awesome slogans. Here's a Magic 8 Ball that even comes with a box, and it's only $4. This is another item from my past that I have no idea why I didn't buy it, especially considering how optimistic it was being. Check this out. Hey Magic 8 Ball, should I keep thrifting? Okay, cool. So will this series ever get me to 1 million subscribers on YouTube? Wow, that sounds too good to be true. You aren't just saying all this to be polite, are you? Oh. Okay. From one legendary kid's toy to another, how many of you had this thing as a kid? I didn't, but my cousin had one, if I remember correctly. And there was one at my local dentist office. This one's so old that it has mildew or possibly black mold growing on parts of it. And the white plastic is turning yellow from either UV light exposure or a chemical reaction inside the plastic itself. Either way, it could use a good retro brightening. I still love seeing this stuff though. At least half the fun of thrifting for me is getting all those warm and fuzzies. And this legend from Fisher-Price definitely delivered those. Or maybe it's the black mold made its way into my brain. I don't know. Either way, it feels pretty good. Need any playing cards? If anybody out there wants to start their own casino or maybe a card shack, well, for about $50 you could get all your cards in one place. Personally, I just want one pack of cards. Can you guess which one? That Star Trek phaser was in rough shape, but this is pretty cool too. Didn't buy him though. Any Deal or No Deal fans watching? If so, you'll probably be frustrated with me because I didn't buy this $4 Deal or No Deal handheld. That's a good price too. My own local village would probably want twice as much. But personally, I just don't really see the appeal. It seems like there's no skill involved. I'm probably way wrong, but don't you just kinda pick at random? I guess the implementation of strategery happens when deciding on keeping the money you already have or giving it up for a chance at the grand prize. Which, in comparison, kinda makes Family Feud seem like a Grandmaster level chess tournament. This entire section of wall was covered in little sandwich baggies filled with small plastic figurines. Luigi looks like he's diving or maybe raising the roof. Oh, I see, he has wheels. This was probably a toy in a Happy Meal or something. I knew this guy from Adventure Time, but I had to look up his name. Jake the dog. And I have no idea who this guy is, but I can honestly say I've never seen an action figure wearing a fanny pack before. I apologize to anyone from the UK who might be watching. That must be very offensive. Over here, a fanny is just a cute word for a butt, which I guess cramming your phone and your wallet and a set of keys into your fanny would also be kind of offensive, but at least it wouldn't be sexist. Here in Canada, everyone has a fanny. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, sandwich bags filled with figurines. Lots of minions. I also don't see the appeal in those, which kind of explains why there's so many here. But that doesn't explain all the Luigis. He was arguably the most fun character to use in Super Mario Bros. 2. I can see people not wanting Pepe Le Pew around though. Glad he was cancelled. A French stereotype whose entire shtick is sexual harassment. And it's a character in a cartoon for little kids. That's messed up. But hey, look, it's a bunch of shoes. I don't know if we've ever been in a shoe section here at the village. But hey, isn't it funny that you can tell the difference between shoes and cleats even whenever viewed from above like this? I guess it's more likely that they'll be cleats if they have really loud colors. Why is that anyways? Trying to distract your opponents with fancy footwork? I'd end up staring at my own feet if I had a pair that was neon green and hot pink like this. It might be my favorite color combination of all time. It makes me think about candy from my childhood for some reason. Maybe Jolly Ranchers packaging? Or like gum or something? Can't remember. These shoes make me think about robots, but not the kind that farts. The kind that can shoot lasers that instead of burning holes through walls, it just kind of creates a bunch of sparks. Because it was the 1950s and movies had really basic practical effects, but it was alright because people didn't have anything better to do, plus the movie theater had air conditioning, and that was a big deal back then because, people didn't have HVAC units at home or even in their cars. It truly was a terrible time to be alive. But we can't dwell on the past, we have to look toward the future, because that's when part 2 of this little adventure in New Minas will be released. That's right, our very first 2-part episode. Bet you didn't see that coming. Well, you gotta keep on your toes during these thrifting videos. We're all about the plot twists, the red herrings, and the abrupt endings right here in The Village of Values.